Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today we're going to dive into a topic that's, well, it's absolutely foundational to our faith. But let's be honest, it can also be one of the most challenging doctrines to really wrap our heads around. We're talking about God's pervasive providence. We're going to explore what it actually means that God has the final say over everything, and more importantly, how that truth should totally transform our day-to-day lives, especially when it comes to something as simple as making plans.
Okay, so let's just start with this quote from James. It sounds completely normal, right? I mean, this is the kind of thing you'd hear in any business meeting. Or maybe something you'd say to your spouse over dinner. Hey, let's go here, do this, make some money. It's practical, it's about looking ahead, it's just planning. Seems totally harmless, perfectly innocent, wouldn't you say?
Well, hold on, because the book of James just drops an absolute bombshell on this kind of thinking. It calls it arrogance and evil. I mean, whoa. That is incredibly strong language. Evil? For making a business plan? So what is going on here? Why would a simple, everyday plan get hit with such a heavy label? That's the big question we've got to unpack.
And here's where we see the huge disconnect, the reason for that strong language. The arrogance comes from a whole set of, well, false assumptions we all tend to make. On the one hand, we think, my future is noble. I can control it. We think, my life is durable. I've got time. And, the big one, we think, my will is decisive. But then, bam, you get the biblical reality check, and it's pretty humbling. The reality is you have no idea what tomorrow brings. Your life, it's like a mist that's here one second and gone the next. And your will? Nope, it's God's will that's ultimately decisive.
Now let's be super clear about this. The Bible is absolutely not against making plans. I mean, the alternative is just drifting through life with no purpose, right? That's not what this is about. The problem isn't the plan, it's the presumption behind the plan. It's that subtle, unspoken attitude of, I've got this, The feeling that my will, my effort, is what really makes things happen. That's the root of the arrogance James is talking about.
So, if our will isn't the final say, then what is? This question leads us straight to the heart of the matter, to the theological truth that completely reframes how we see everything. And that is the doctrine of pervasive providence. So what do we even mean by pervasive providence? Well, it means that God's governing hand isn't just for the big stuff. His influence isn't suspended or limited in any area of life. It literally extends over everything. I'm talking from the smallest details in nature all the way up to the most powerful decisions made by human beings. He has the ultimate, final, decisive dominion over every last bit of it.
And this right here is where it gets really challenging for a lot of us. Because if God's will is ultimately decisive, that means our own will, our actions, our plans, all our striving, they aren't the final cause of what happens. And man, that is a huge challenge to our modern sense of autonomy, our feeling that we're in the driver's seat.
To help us get our minds around this, Scripture gives us this incredible picture, this powerful metaphor. Think about the most powerful, most independent human will you can imagine, the heart of a king. Proverbs says that king's heart is like a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. And what does God do with it? He doesn't fight it or wrestle with it. He just turns it. He channels it effortlessly, wherever he wills. Amazing. And listen, this isn't just some nice, poetic idea. This is a reality the Bible shows us playing out over and over again throughout history. Let's actually look at some concrete examples of God turning the hearts of kings. You can see this consistent pattern all through the Old Testament. Think about it. God turns Pharaoh's heart to take Joseph out of a dungeon and make him second in command of Egypt. Then, during the Exodus, he moves on the hearts of the Egyptians so they just give their wealth to the Israelites as they're leaving. Fast forward, and he directs the pagan king Nebuchadnezzar, even calls him his servant, to be the instrument of judgment on Israel. And then on the flip side, he stirs up the spirit of another pagan king, Cyrus, to send the exiles back home. Time and time again, God is working his sovereign plan right through the will of these powerful rulers. And this shows you the incredible, two-sided nature of God's sovereign control, doesn't it? On one hand, he uses a king like Cyrus as an instrument of amazing blessing and deliverance. I mean, the guy funds the rebuilding of God's temple. But then on the other hand, he uses a king like Nebuchadnezzar as his hammer of war, an instrument of severe judgment. Two totally different kings, two totally different actions, but both are serving God's ultimate purpose. Okay, so that's some pretty massive theology, right? It's huge, but the big question is, so what? What does this mean for you and me today in our lives? How does really, truly believing in pervasive providence change how we live? Well, it all comes down to what we can call 4 transformative pillars. You see, when we genuinely grab hold of God's complete sovereignty, it really does change everything. It becomes the foundation for an unshakable joy, no matter what's happening. It empowers us to love sacrificially, it gives us the courage to be a fearless witness for Christ, and, bringing it all back around, it lets us plan our lives with real, humble confidence.
Let's just zoom in on one of these for a second, that third pillar, fearless witness. How on earth does believing in God's meticulous control over everything make us courageous?
Well, Jesus himself makes the connection crystal clear. He tells us, hey, look at the sparrows. Not a single one of those little birds falls to the ground apart from your Father's will. The logic is so simple but so profound. If God's sovereign care is that detailed, that meticulous over a common bird, just think how much more his loving sovereign care extends to you. You are of infinitely more value than many sparrows.
So here's the bottom line. Living in light of God's providence gives you this incredible assurance that nothing, I mean nothing, not persecution, not a random accident, not a terrible disease, can touch you outside of God's good and merciful plan for your life. You are, in a very real sense, immortal until your work is done. That right there, that is the bedrock of a fearless witness.
And this brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Back to the simple act of making plans. We've seen the problem, arrogant planning. We've seen the solution, God's pervasive providence. So how do we actually put the two together?
This is the beautiful transformation right here. On one side, you have arrogant planning. It's built on a really flimsy foundation, right? Luck, chance, your own willpower. The attitude is, I will make this happen. And you know what that leads to? A ton of presumption and anxiety. But then look at the other side, confident planning. The foundation is the unshakable rock of God's sovereign will. The attitude completely shifts to a humble, if the Lord wills. And the result? Not anxiety, but deep peace and real confidence.
So, let me say it again. The solution is not to stop planning for your business or your family or your ministry, not at all. The solution is to completely reframe the entire act of planning. It stops being about you asserting your own control, and it becomes an act of humble, worshipful reliance on the all-governing God, the one who directs all things for his glory and for the good of his people. And so that really leaves us with one final question to think about, to really let sink in. If you truly, deeply embrace this reality, that the all-governing God, the one who directs the hearts of kings and knows the number of hairs on your head, is 100% for you and not against you because of Christ, what would change? What fear would you finally let go of? What risk for his kingdom would you finally take? What part of your life would be totally transformed?